financial goals. You want more money? Turn what you know into dough. Start hanging out with the people who have it. You create wealth on your own terms. It is not only your rights, but your duty to build wealth. You are fiscally fabulous, and it's time to enjoy your legacy.
You're listening to Fiscally Fabulous with Dr. Teresa R. Martin, Esquire, a podcast that aims to provide you with the tools, guidance, and encouragement you need to build your wealth, enjoy your wealth, and leave a lasting legacy. Dr. Martin is an accomplished attorney, speaker, business consultant, and real estate strategist, an all-around self-made success who provides highly sought-after expert consulting in the creation, growth, and maintenance of generational wealth.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Real Talk. We are going to get started with our legislative updates from none other than our super fantabulous Paul Bodley, who handles all things legislation, and we affectionately call him Legislatively Yours. And Mr. Paul Bodley, would you please give us a rundown on what's going on in these legislative streets here? What's going on?
Oh my goodness. So I'm going to have to quote Henry V again. Come sit around the campfire and let me tell you my tales of woe. And I don't blame you for avoiding the news, but the funny thing is that as I listen to all this stuff, and keep in mind, we haven't even hit 100 days yet. It's still under 100 days. It's just amazing. The amount of stuff that what they're trying to do is that they're calling it the fire hose approach, where they're trying to throw as many stuff at the wall as possible so people don't have time to react and mount a defense against some of the things that they're trying to do. But slowly but surely, they're getting bogged down by a lot of the lawsuits. And even the executive orders I saw, and this was like 2 weeks ago, they had already they already signed like over 107 executive actions, and some of them are clearly illegal, but they're getting bogged down in multiple states, multiple federal jurisdictions are stopping them in their tracks. So we'll see how this goes as it goes up the chain from federal courts, appeals courts, all the way up to the Supreme Court. But let's get started with some more unpleasant news, and let's just get right to the tariff. The tariffs is the big stuff, what's going on. So I'd like to go on the Wall Street Journal and see where the stock market is, the Dow Jones. And it's funny, it's like everybody's thinking like, okay, the tariffs have been paused for 90 days. Like the reciprocal, what they're calling the reciprocal tariffs have been paused for 90 days. There's still a across the board 10% tariff on everything. So while we think that there's like some relief, no, there's not. And we're already starting to pay some of the prices. In my W-2 day-to-day job, because Japan, we get a lot of our products from Japan, like the electronics, we almost got hit with a 24% tariff on some of the products that we use on our day-to-day, but that got rescinded when the tariffs got paused. The company is not charging us the 10% yet, but we'll see what happens in 90 days. But yeah, the tariffs are no joke, and where it really hurts us is a lot of the products that we need for getting our houses up to speed. If we're still doing direct retail sales or wholesaling or rent to own or landlording, we got to get the houses fixed up. We got to put the products in there because refrigerators, stoves, even the security systems, they're all coming from a lot of times overseas. And that's because our country has become a country built on consumers. We like low prices, we like to buy stuff, and the only way to keep it low is to have all the manufacturing done outside the country. So
with the tariff thing, let me just ask you this question, because you just mentioned something really key. When you mention about the wholesaling and the way that we do our real estate businesses, right? Because where would that leave, in your opinion, franchises such as Homevestors, right? Well, whose whole model is the whole we buy ugly houses, right? We buy ugly houses and what they do with those houses. Like, how is this now going to affect those type of franchises and things of that sort? Because it's heavily reliant on rehab, right? Yeah. And coming in and fixing. What do you think from a standpoint for somebody out there who is listening to you right now and saying, I was thinking about getting a home investors franchise. What caution, I want to ask you, what caution would you give to those people?
Triple, quadruple check your numbers, because everything is going to go up. And the problem is we don't know how much stuff is going to go up. So in the case of, this is a perfect example for the home investors, aluminum and steel, there's tariffs on that. Lumber, we get a lot about lumber from Canada. We got like tariffs on that. Again, the appliances and all the other, even the labor, we're running into issues because a lot of the construction labor are people, migrants who come from different countries. Now, some of those folks have disappeared back into the woods, not the physical woods, but the verbal woods, because they just don't know when like an ICE van is going to show up and start checking people's ID or loading them up in the van and sending them off to El Salvador. So we have like labor shortages, we have parts shortages. And even if you could source everything, even if you could find somebody to actually do the work and fix the house up, those prices are going to go up. So if you're saying that you're going to get a house price that, say, I'm just using round numbers, say like $100,000, tariff is going to add maybe like another 10 to 20% on top of that. So if your house now is going to cost you $120,000, is that your profit right there? So you definitely have to double check as you move forward, you have to always be aware of what the actual costs are, because some of these things are just happening overnight. Some things are getting tariffed. Sometimes the tariff is being forgiven or paused. We just don't know. And that makes it really difficult to plan ahead. And that's why the stock market is going down and investors are moving out of like bonds and the dollar, because they can't trust what's going to happen. Market doesn't like uncertainty.
Come on now. You can only buy a bond when you trust your government, okay?
Yeah.
So if you can trust that they're doing what they're supposed to do. So that wouldn't make much sense for a lot of people buying bonds right now because we're so fickle. And that's why I asked the question specifically, because I had a client today who was thinking about a home investors franchise. Yeah. And I was like, just like you said, just thinking about where you are right now, because on the associate franchise, I'm not really sure. Remember back in the day, Paul, when we were doing all our Rochester investing, and that's when home investors was like really big. That was a long time ago, right? For that. But associate franchise fee right now, they call it affordable entry points at around $109K to $415,000 total investment, with an upfront franchise fee of $39,000. That's just for the associate franchise. So for a full franchise, folks are looking to go all in. That ranges like $155,000 to $461,000 total, and a franchise fee of $85,000. So my whole thing is, if you're looking at those type of numbers, looking at the model of what was happening in yesteryear, and then comparing that to what happens now, you're absolutely right that they need to quadruple check and make sure that their numbers are on point. Because with that type of an investment, you definitely want to make sure that, one, the market can sustain it. And then with these tariffs, how are you going to navigate through these, like I said, legislative waters here, these streets?
Let me give you 3 other things that's going to also impact people who want to actually buy physical property. Number 1, insurance. We don't know where insurance is going to go, especially if the federal government goes through with their plan to get rid of FEMA and push it back down to the states. Where is that money coming from? Where is that expertise coming from to actually marshal all the resources needed to put a community back together once a natural disaster has come through? I got like a FEMA actually under the previous administration, they put out like almost a decade's worth of reports. Preparation of what happens if you have a national disaster like a hurricane. What happens if you have like a school shooting accident? What happens if you have a virus that spreads to your community? They got preparations for that. Those states are not going to be able to be prepared to do that, especially the ones that actually get hit the hardest, like Texas, Florida, Louisiana, Alabama. They're not prepared to handle this on a state level. The second thing that's going to happen is, I had 3 things there. So it was the insurance. It was this is why I should write this down, because I forgot my points just that quick. I'll come back to it.
I'm sure while we're talking, a lot of stuff is going to come up, because physical property, this is something that we really need to pay attention to.
Thank you. That's the other thing. It was property taxes. With the federal government threatening to cut off funding to the states and pulling back some of the money that's already been allocated by Congress, So the states already budget this money to go out for certain things. And now that's coming back saying, oh no, we're taking that money back. We're freezing these grants, taking that funding back from the state. So the only way the states can actually recoup that money is they're going to have to increase the property taxes. So that means that now your property taxes are now going to go up.
Wow.
And then finally, because the banks are not confident in where the economy is going to go with like the tariffs and everything, they're really becoming, you think we're being conservative? They're really being conservative to the point where they're actually cutting back some of their lending opportunities. So for anybody who's like looking at these programs to be a first-time home buyer or get in with like less than 20 or 25% down on your down payment, those programs are slowly being eroded or being put back under the covers until this whole nonsense with the tariffs is taken care of. So this is all affecting housing all the way down the road. And I haven't even got to like the staff cuts yet.
Yeah, but even when you're just thinking about the real estate side, let's talk about for the people who are in the business of real estate, you know, whatever that is, it's still real estate, your business, your entrepreneurship, lending, right? Because they're not just cutting, banks are being very conservative, extra conservative now. They were always, okay, right? That's why they always made you co-sign stuff, right? Made you secure your loan with your social, right? This is now when, what do you call it? Creative financing is going to come into play. Seller financing is going to come into play. Alternative financing funding sources are going to come into play because traditional lending sources are being extra conservative. And so your business and your real estate business model, because your business plan got to be tight. You have to be really good in your game and be able to sell your project that would be tariff proof, if you will, or staff tariff proof once you're going to get into that. So whatever it means, right? Yeah. I just wanted to just tie on that because that's not just real estate. We're talking business as a whole, because even if you service real estate people and they got to worry about the widgets and the steel and the lumber and everything that goes along with that, you're going to be affected, even though it may not directly affect your business model, if you will.
Good point. And then 2 more points along that with the 1-2 punch of getting the insurance is there's also now cuts going to like the National Oceanic, the weather forecast people. They're cutting that. Why do we need to learn about a hurricane? We got a perfectly good window that we can look out. So we don't need any extended forecasts about that. So we got that to deal with, that we don't have the ability to forecast for tornadoes and hurricanes and flooding. So that's all more events that we have to deal with. And they did it as part of the temporary funding, the continuing funding resolution that they passed last month, but they did a small extension for the National Flood Insurance Program. So for anybody, and pretty much the whole country now is a flood zone, you can actually get flood insurance subsidized by the federal government. And we pretty much all need that, because if you try to buy flood insurance by yourself, it's very expensive. And flood insurance has to be done separately from homeowner insurance, because flooding is not covered by your homeowner policy.
Wow, and we just talked about this on the marketing and tech call on Saturday about what things are needed from an insurance standpoint. So this is definitely a great add-on to that, Paul.
Yeah, and then for anybody who's investing in the Southwest, like California, Arizona, New Mexico, now you got to worry about wildfires. And we've even seen wildfires in New Jersey and New York because the climate's changing, and we get like floods in April and then we get drought in May. So everything's getting dried out. So you need to have wildfire insurance, natural disaster insurance, which is different from your homeowner insurance. So there's a lot of levels of insurance that we need to think about going forward to protect our properties, whether it's our primary residence or our investment property. Insurance is getting much more expensive. And the level of insurance that we need for full replacement, because wildfire comes through, there's nothing left. At least with flooding, you just have to worry about the water damage, or maybe like the first level, hopefully, and not have the whole house have to be demolished because flooding went all the way up to the roof, because you're living in a major flood zone. But now we have to worry about, do we have enough coverage to actually replace full replacement of our house? And if the prices keep going up, that means that in some areas, we could be looking at like $100, $200, all the way up to $300-$400 a square foot to replace that house.
That's insane, especially now. So now you can't think about after repair value. How everybody's, okay, what's the ARV? What does that look like? Now it's, okay, do we have to change the way we do our calculations for after repair value and all that? Now we have to look at replacement costs. And who does that? Do we need an actual actuary now? This is like a lot of stuff that we have to think about right now from an investor standpoint. Yeah.
Yeah. And in the past, as far as like a power team, we made those optional to have an appraiser, an inspector on your team. Now that they're almost as important as having a realtor and a contractor on your team, because you got to know those numbers, both sides of the equation, no matter which way you're going.
So much has changed in the world, and reasons for legal counsel are many. With the law offices of Teresa R. Martin, PC, you walk in looking for solutions, but when you walk out with a growth mission and a support network. Get an attorney in real estate and business who knows and understands how to eliminate debt. Teresa has built an empire designed to grow businesses and strengthen communities. martinlegal.com.
All right.
What other bad news I got for you? All right, this is for coaches. So coach was talking about like the CFPB. Yeah, they just announced that even though they filed a lawsuit to stop the cuts, they're pretty much eviscerating the CFPB. So they're cutting about like 80% of the staff for CFPB. They even put the building up for sale in Washington. Once they, even though they have like the order to stop them, the legal order, it's almost like a done deal. So we're not going to do that. But what coach is saying, what's then becoming the watchdog to protect people? And sad reality is there is no watchdog to protect people. So he's got the Orange King has his sycophants in place at FTC. He's got him in the SEC. He's got in the FCC for the broadcast. So he's using that to threaten people, broadcasters, with their license if they publish or talk bad about him. Yeah, CNN and MSNBC have already been threatened by this, and
Cool.
and
law
legal.
firms.
Oh,
Okay. Law firms. And my whole thing is really bringing into reality a dictatorship.
Yep.
And the concept of that and the reality has not hit to the point where people don't really understand, because like you mentioned earlier, everything is happening so fast, no one has time to react to it. They're still focused on the immigration issue and the migration and getting them back, right?
Yes.
And so if I got you looking at that, you're not looking at this, and I definitely can't pay attention to student loans. I can't pay attention to any of this nonsense that the Department of Education is getting ready to do. So it's a lot of things that's happening, and it's happening so fast that we really can't keep track. But it's important that we keep track, because you have to know how to navigate and what your next move is going to be. So this is why I am always saddened that we don't have 500 people on this RealTalk call. Because the bottom line is, who are you getting your information from? Who are you listening to? You don't even know how to decipher the information that's coming at you and how it affects you in real estate and or business. Because this is not a call that you found important enough that you mark your calendar for. But it is what it is. The people who get on, get the information, are able to navigate and build sustainable businesses, because now we saw it, we can forecast it, and now we can direct our P&Ls towards it.
And one of the other things that kills me is one of the early federal agencies, watchdog agencies that got defanged was the National Labor Relations Board. That's almost like defunct because they got rid of the Democrats who are on the committee. So now they don't have a quorum, so they really can't do anything. EEOC has been defanged. So there's really nothing out there as far as from the federal government level to be a safeguard. And forget about DOJ. Yeah, they're getting rid of their whole civil rights and even dropping some of the civil rights cases that they had already in the pipeline. They're dropping those cases. We're definitely on our own. And to the fact that we don't keep track of all the things that's going on, I know this one definitely flew under the radar. One of the proposals is for the federal government to do away with issuing paper checks. So we know that 40% of the U.S. citizens do not have a bank account. If you don't have a bank account, how are you getting your funds?
And Coach and I talk about this all the time, because the biggest effect of that is who? And the elderly.
Yes.
And the shut-in.
Yeah.
And that tends to be us as well. So it's really a big deal. And that's why it's important for us to continue the conversation regarding generational wealth, because generational wealth is not just money, it's knowledge. If I know more, I can do more, I can advise more, right?
Yeah.
And so these are some of the things that is really, I'm encouraged because we have knowledge base, we have these calls, we have you, we have Coach in credit, we have Latoya in tax lanes, we have Lorraine in tax strategies, and James helping us with our systems and processes to understand how to protect ourselves from these digital worlds and internet hackers and things of that sort, securing ourselves. So we have a dynamic team to do that, but without the knowledge of how we use it, right? Because we can weaponize these things like everybody else. Our weapons is not for mass destruction, it's for mass addiction. It's a difference, but we still need to come together to understand how to do that. But as long as we stay in these silos, and I tell people all the time, wealth does not move in silos, it moves in circles. And if you do not expand your circle, your wealth is going to because you don't know what you don't know. So thank you for bringing that to our attention, as far as thank Coach for bringing it up about this federal disbandment and consumer protection, because there are going to be none. So there's no consumer protection. Are they moving everyone into the B2B space? Are they moving people more into entrepreneurship? And now this is where they're going to, because now more businesses are now in position to do the things that they need to do. Right now, that can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing, because there's no safeguards to protect people. So now we're going to have all the people coming out the woodwork, scamming all the consumers. And then they have nowhere to go and complain to, or anyone to advocate for them because of the disbandment. So I really just don't understand how we're going to stand. Don't understand, because everything is being disbanded and not for the betterment. This is not for the betterment. You know what I mean? Because I don't understand how everything is going to be working. Yeah, Paul, I'm scared. I got a little fear in me. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm not scared because we're aware. And a lot of people are not aware, or they just want to curl up into a low ball and like just pretend that all this stuff is not happening. So it's painful to watch it happening, but we can actually get around this, because the big fight is knowing like what's happening and why it's happening. So people put this guy back in office because they were reminiscing about like how prices were low when he was in office the first time. They were low because we were COVID shut-ins and we weren't spending any money. That's why prices were low. So this is all changed around. And to your point about, do we do B2B? This time around, where COVID was like responsible for creation of a lot of businesses, and also a side effect from the original tax cuts that were pushed out in 2017, it encouraged people to change their tax status by forming a business. But they're even doing cuts to the Small Business Administration and reformatting the people who could actually apply for grants. So a lot of those grants, like for minority and women entrepreneurs, that's being cut. For minority businesses, that's being cut because it's too DEI and it's too woke. But never mind that some people just need a foot up because they don't have the full access that some other groups have. So just throwing that out there. Let's be real of what's going on.
Exactly.
So let me just give you just a couple more bad news things, and then we'll go on to some other stuff. But This is like stuff we just got to know. You mentioned about the student loan. So they just announced like a day or two ago that anybody who had like a delinquent loan, now you're going to get like you're going to have your wages like garnished again. They had suspended that for a few years. Now it's coming back. And those who thought that they were going to get there, it's still not clear now that they're trying to dismantle the Department of Education, moving student loans over to SBA. Do they even have the resources to handle that kind of like volume of people who need to get their student loans approved and processed? That has yet to be seen, because it looks good on paper, but we know that this group just, instead of working with a scalpel, they're like doing everything with a sledgehammer. One important thing that we definitely have to, especially for all businesses, is to think about, not right now, because we're already starting to see is it about the US dollar? So the US dollar has always been a good investment for a lot of countries. And that's why we can actually afford to keep running up all these like deficits on our federal budgets every year, because we can still go out there and sell. But current administration has cast a lot of doubt on US dollar as a value investment vehicle and also US bonds. And bonds, I'm not talking about the savings bond. I'm talking about the big institutional bonds that the $1 trillion that Japan owns, that China owns. Once they start dumping those bonds onto the market and the feds can't sell that stuff anymore, either the feds got to buy it to support the country, or we can't afford to do the things that we want to do with the budget. So how this all ties into the tax cuts that they want to do. So they haven't really got into the meat and potatoes of the tax cuts and how they're going to support that. But we already know that's going to add another like $5 to $8 trillion of debt to the bottom line. So how that's all getting paid for, if it's up to the current folks, they would just have money for the military and Border Patrol and Homeland Security, and that's it. Everybody else can go pound sand.
I agree. That's what it seems like, yes.
Yeah. So we're starting to see a lot of institutional investors dumping dollars and going into precious metals like gold, not even going into oil, because even oil is dropping because they're anticipating that there's going to be less demand for oil. So those prices are already dropping. But the main thing I wanted to talk about is that what happens if the dollar is not considered the world currency in the near future, because the U.S. has already pissed off so many of its partners. What happens with that? And my prediction is the dollar will continue to be drop against other currencies. So while it'll make other buying products overseas more attractive, it's going to like tank our wages here in the U.S. So you can make and get like a 10% increase in your salary, and that's going to be great. But what if your costs rise like 20-25% because the value of the dollar? So I don't know what that's going to do for housing prices going forward, whether that's going to make them go up. I don't know yet, because right now, a lot of the home builders for new housing projects, they're putting their projects on pause until all these things with the tariffs and the dollar get sorted out. So where we need a good 7 million units nationwide for housing, period, whether it's affordable or just people to live in, now that's all being paused. So that is being delayed. And that comes at a bad time too, because, I can talk about the HUD cuts. So HUD is not only making major cuts to the Section 8 housing vouchers. So anybody who was having a business that relied on the Section 8 vouchers, they're being cut, or having the people who receive them make sure that work eligible in order to receive the benefits. But a lot of these people already are work eligible, and nobody's getting a 100% free ride on voucher program. You already have to kick in some money toward that. So how much of that money is going to be cut, we have to see. And we already know that they're cutting the programs to support like the homeless and get the homeless off the street. So rather than putting them in houses, they just want to hide them somewhere. Now, where are they going to hide them? I don't know, if they don't have a building to put them in. But these are all the cuts that's coming down from HUD.
Because remember, they're taking away the hotels. Remember, they came down with the hotels that was sheltering the homeless. So then when you mention about the home building being on pause, now you're thinking about what is that going to do to the rental market, the house sellers, right, who are looking to sell, those people looking to buy, right? Because where are you going? Where the seller's going to go, right? Because they planned on going somewhere when they sell their home, go retire, do whatever they're going to do. Then you have the home buyers. The prices are going to go up because of the things that's happening. And then with everything going on, you still have, okay, I got to put on my hat now because I get upset when I talk about this. And everybody always gets on me because they think I'm anti-tenant, and I'm so not. Anti-BS is what I am, okay? And so you still have tenants in homes that have not paid in 2 years when the homeowner has done everything they need to do as far as court, and they keep getting the runaround and still not getting rent payments. It was just in the paper the other day. Still not getting their payment. How are they expected to renovate the property or fix anything? Call me whatever. I don't care if boilers break. I don't care if tenants break. I don't care if windows are. I don't care. If you haven't paid me in 2 years, okay? Win a job. We're not talking about somebody who ain't got no job. That would be bad, but I'm talking about you have the funds. You mean to tell me you couldn't kick in $5 over 2 years? So now you have the economy that's fostering this nonsense, right? And so you're giving the people who are anti this, saying, look, see, this is what I'm talking about. This is why the programs need to be cut. So you have people who are feeding into the nonsense, right? And so now if I don't fix anything because I haven't gotten paid for 2 years, I'm a slumlord, right? And so this is what we're dealing with. And my whole thing is, this is why, say what you want, you can't pay me to deal with tenants, toilets, and trash. I'm done. Because I don't believe that we live in an economy that is fair, okay? Because you have pro-tenant laws all over the place, okay? But somebody has to pay for them. And that is the reason why Orange King got in. Because of these nonsensical laws that make no sense. And now we're dealing with this, and this is what has to happen. It's bad, but it's gonna get worse. But you still have people who are feeding the narrative. You're having people helping the narrative, right? And so they're just gonna say, see, this is what I'm talking about. And then I'm gonna point to them, and this is what happened. Because somebody had to be a poster child and justify my nonsense, right? So yeah, I just had to get on my tirade because it just came out in the paper, and I was telling Coach about it, and I was just saying, this is what I'm talking about. Why is this person in this person's house for 2 years? We're talking about 2-family. We're not talking about a big building. We're talking about a 2-family. Mama lived down on the first floor, then pulling up baseboards, water coming down, spilling on my mama, and I can't get you out. So it's a bad state of affairs right now. And I don't care what any tenant advocate say. Come on, Real Talk, and challenge me. If you got a defense, you come on and challenge me. I dare you. Because this doesn't make any sense. None whatsoever. Now, I do know that there's unscrupulous landlords out there. Don't get me wrong. I do. Okay? But when you have good landlords out there who are trying to make decent home affordable and give you decency, then you get these people who just want to take advantage of the system. How do you win?
Join a community of like-minded female entrepreneurs and get peer-to-peer mentoring, profit accelerator optimization, financial literacy development, business education workshops, and a network of winning ladies. Generational Wealth Zone is for the go-getter female entrepreneurs dedicated to building wealth. At Generational Wealth Zone, we work with you, for you, and beside you and our Fiscally Fabulous members. EnjoyYourLegacy.com, 646-437-6003.
Yeah, there was in last session, I don't know if they've actually brought those bills back because I don't think they passed, but there was like legislation proposed in the New York State government to strengthen and not strengthen, but loosen up some of the requirements under the TPA to increase some of the monies for improvements, like under the IA and the MDI. Is it MDI? Those two programs to where they cap the funds that a landlord could pass back to the tenant in order to repair the property. Those numbers were too low, especially in the New York City area. So now they're talking about bumping them up. But again, they've run into a lot of opposition because the downstate folks are very apartment centric.
I get both sides, but
yeah.
I want people to live in decent homes. Nobody should be in homes that are slum and landlords not fixing it. But when you have good people out there trying to do what they need to do, and you have people taking advantage of the system because they know the loopholes and they know who to complain to, and then you have social bleeding heart people out there, you know what I mean? You got to level the playing field. That's all I'm saying. It's got to be fair on both sides. If somebody loses, then it's not a good solution. It has to be a win-win. I might not get all my money, but give me some of my money so I can fix up and then they can live and all that stuff. But I digress, Paul. Continue, sir.
This is the issue I had when they announced those grants for the PPP loans. It's like, I thought, okay, that's great that they're throwing that money out there to help people out during the COVID shutdown and very quickly. But I said, this is going to be a problem because there's no oversight over here. There's no requirements for people to show and prove that they're actually putting that money where they're supposed to be putting that money. So there was a lot of fraud and theft in that program nationwide.
You mean Marjorie Taylor Greene shouldn't have got no money? Is that what you're saying? Are you saying that? I'm just checking. I just want to see. Says MTG got her get stuff. I just want to see.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of people got stuff. But let me just finish off on the federal side with just like talk about again, with the taxes. I have a feeling, unfortunately, that they're going to extend like the tax cuts program because it's supposed to extend at the end of this year. And they're just trying to figure out how to get that passed. So we'll see what the details are because they're talking about doing that in the next month or two. So we'll see where that one goes. So last couple of things I just wanted to finish up with is in May, we're probably going to have this year? Yeah, this year is I'm going to have the primary for the New York City mayor. We already got close to 15 candidates who declared to want to be mayor, including former Governor Andrew Cuomo. So I want to go back in and review everybody's housing programs because everybody had like very robust housing programs that they put out there and see how that's going to fly in face of the housing cut that's coming down from the feds. Feds are already trying to claw back the money to fix the Penn Station, the tunnel system going from New York and New Jersey, because they're trying to get New York to cancel the congestion pricing program. So they're using that as blackmail, which that's what this group does. So I got to read that. And I don't know if everybody knew this, but current mayor Adams, he is no longer running as a Democrat. He's running as an independent because he's having fundraising issues. So running as an independent means that he avoids the whole Democratic primary. He doesn't have to spend any money until November. It's actually pretty smart. I thought he was going to run as a Republican. So right now, the only Republican is Curtis Sliwa that's running. He's a perpetual candidate. So him and his cat suit, they can all get out there and vote. And then lastly, for our brokers on the line, I'm not sure if you heard about this. Both Zillow and Redfin have passed new policies for their websites where they're not going to exclude private listings anymore. So private listings, I think, are the FSBO listings, which I did not realize was not being listed on the sites, but now they're going to start listing those listings on their websites too. So I know that some brokers didn't want to have that and they want to have exclusive access to some of those. So that's a thing for all our brokers out there. There's some new marketing rules out there that you have to be aware of. And woof, that was a lot.
It was a lot, but it was really good. And I'm really excited about, one, like I mentioned earlier, about the knowledge base that these calls provide, because it's important for people to stay in the know for this. So whether you're talking federal or state, and then it applies to those people who are investing outside of state. So first-time home buyers, things are changing, right? So you got to be aware if you are in the market to represent first-time home buyers. Okay, that's number one. Two, if you represent first-time home buyers or minority businesses or anybody who is considered woke or DEI, then you have to shift some things, right? So there's a lot of things that are changing in this. I don't even know what this is. Not even. This is just. It feels like I'm in a whole nother universe. I feel like I'm just so. This is just something different. I don't get it. But I do know that we have the tools, the resources, the knowledge, the know-how, the network, and the bandwidth to combat some of these things that's happening. And one of the things that when you mentioned, Paul, when we was talking about the lending aspect of it, the one important thing that I want people to point out, I want to point out to people, we've been talking a lot this month specifically about creative financing and seller financing and things of that sort. It's a reason why we're doing that, right? Because if you're looking at everything that's happening and you're seeing the tightening, it was already tight, all right? So for certain folks, it was always tight, right? But you could go to SBA. You could get a government grant. You could do government contracting. All these things have now shifted. Can you still do it? Of course you can. But now they're going through your policies, your missions, your visions, your operating agreements with a fine-tooth comb. How many people can say that their mission is anti-DEI or whatever? So if you have anything in your mission, vision, policies, whatever, and it has anything that is deemed to be DEI related, you will be scrutinized and or turned down from government contracts and any other thing that deals with that from a federal government standpoint. So this is why it's so important that we talk about the importance of having a business plan, the importance of knowing your business plan, the importance of having your mission statement, making sure your mission statement is also translated on your website, making sure that everything that you're doing is about business. And I'm not going to say I've been preparing you guys for such a time as this. We've been talking about this for damn near 8 years. Okay. And making sure everything is, your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed. How many times I've been telling people, get your business in order, get your business credit, stop worrying about how much that cost and all that, because not having it costs you more. Right? So would you spend $5,000 to get $250,000? Okay. Would you do that? If the answer is yes, then do it and build your business, build your revenue, and then pay it. And so those are certain things that people are like paying for things that don't make sense and not paying for things that do make sense because they don't know the difference. And so now that you talked about the federal government, talked about the CFPB, the dismantling of consumer protection, and all the things that we need to pay attention to with the tariffs and housing and all of that, this is why we really need to make sure that we're doing business and doing business.
Jade here hired an online freelancer to help her file her LLC. What she did not know was that she had to file her quarterly taxes, where to find her registered agent, or even why she needs one. If only someone had told her about the law offices of Teresa R. Martin, PC. Teresa and her team of exceptional quality professionals make it their business to establish great business. Let's schedule a call to make sure you are operating within the law. martinlegal.com.
Stan has his hand up. Stan, you can come off mute and ask your question.
We should have room as usual. You had mentioned before about the MLS and how, and with the FSBOs and what have you, are they going to be a part of the MLS now? Is the MLS now unexclusive as it once was, just to realtors and brokers now?
Not that, well, yeah, as part of the NAR settlement, they actually are opening up the MLS. So it's now no longer exclusive only to brokers. So you can get access to that. What I was talking about was Zillow and Redfin in their listings. They were including FSBOs in their listings. So now they're going to include them into their listings. So some of that exclusive listings that weren't part of when you did a search for available properties, the FSBOs weren't there.
But when you did a search on the Zillows and the Redfins and such, that's where they were accessing from, was the MLS, wasn't it?
In some cases,
Say
yeah.
that again, Stan. I'm sorry, I missed that. What'd you say?
When you would do a search on Zillows or the Realtor, Redfins, for example, they were, the listings that would come up in your search were all from the MLS, right?
Yeah, to some extent, but they didn't include FSBOs.
Right.
So
But
it wasn't the
and
same.
at some point,
It wasn't the
Right.
same like MLS exclusive listing that you had previously before the NRA. So it was like a modified. They was the base, but it wasn't the exact same thing. Say like you went to like New York State MLS. So it was like a hybrid.
It's whatever patch they had to pull that data from that. So realtor.com is not the same thing as realtor.org. So your consumer facing is not the same MLS that realtors have access to. And they can't pull that. There's a certain thing that's exclusive to MLS brokerages. Okay.
Right.
And that's what brokers pay into. We pay a
Right.
lot of money.
yes,
to have access
I
to.
remember. I remember.
But there is the consumer facing side, which is what's patched in. Think about it the same as your FICO score. Your FICO credit report is not the same as a tri-merge report that a bank would have. But it's pulling the same data, but it's not the same thing. You see what I'm saying? So think about it like that. It's a patch that's going through, but it's not exactly the same.
Okay. So the MLS hasn't opened up their doors where someone who isn't a realtor or a broker can come in and now get that real extensive look if they were looking.
I don't think so. And if they do, they're going to lower my damn fee.
Yes.
Yeah, they created, like, I think in the past, and Teresa, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but I think in the past, like when you had to have be part of a brokerage house and pay into
That's still the same.
Okay. So yeah, that was the process. Like in order to get access to MLS, you had to be a broker or part of a brokerage to get it. So they opened it up a little bit so that you don't necessarily have to be part of a brokerage, but you still have to pay into it to get access to it.
Okay. Or like a property shop.
Similar to that. Correct. Okay. That's not the same MLS, but you're pulling the data just like they pull it from the county courthouse and all that. And remember, it's still people in the government, in those buildings that are entering stuff, right? So the information is as good as the information being put in, right? So if they're not putting it in and it's a stat that is still waiting there to be put in and inputted, you're not going to have that data feed. So going to the county courthouse and getting the copy and making the copies and all that, you can still do that, or you can just wait for it to be patched in where you can get that feed. You know what I mean? So it's still the information, but it may not be as timely. And the same thing like when Latoya's getting tax lien deed information and stuff like that, or Nick using his software, you're only getting what they put in, right? And then everything they might be missing a field or whatever. It's just how you have programmed your system to feed in and patch into the information, just like credibility. Somebody reached out to me just today, talked about the phone number. And I was like, okay, the phone number still shows as it's not a real address. And I was like, okay, that has nothing to do with my system. That has something to do with the FCC, because my system feeds directly into the FCC database, right? It gets the information from there. But again, that information out then gets that information out, right? So that's the same thing that we're getting here. So same concept. So I know that we belabored the point. I just wanted to make sure that we understood the same thing. But that's the most important thing, Stan. It's not always going to be the same thing, especially if realtors are paying darn near $800 a year for MLS access. You know what I mean? That's not going to be free for no FISBO.
One of the things that you can get from a realtor who has MLS access is you can look for expired listings. So you can do a little bit of that in realtor.com and Zillow, but you can't get the full list as easily as you can from a realtor doing it through an MLS.
Okay. I was just, that would have been huge to me. I'm like, what? You got
That would have been huge, but they do understand that there is, even if they gave them access, they wouldn't even know how to read it. It's not, especially the raw data, the way it's put in. I'm just really hoping that this whole real estate thing gets worked out, because there's something for professionalism and professionals in this space. Market analysis is not easy to do, and a lot of people don't really understand. And a lot of the FISBO people, the reason why you went to realtors is because you don't know how to market, and you think just because you have access to the MLS, that's going to help you market your property that much quicker. Are you serious? So it is what it is. That's just my take, but I'm biased.
Oh, and I have one more thing. I just want to share this real quick. So we talked a little bit, I alluded to like the cuts that are coming down from the federal government. And I think I mentioned this in previous calls, like we always think that of federal employees being in DC. I gotta share my screen real fast because I gotta show you this map. This is from the Wall Street Journal. But this is a map just showing right now, like where the most of DC area for folks who are living in DC who are doing the work for the federal government. But what we don't realize is that federal government people live all across the country. So these are all the places that hire and employ federal employees. And you can see how many states and communities are going to be impacted by the cuts that are coming down. And it's affecting red and blue. It's not just affecting the Northeast people or the coastal people alone. So yeah, there's some big changes coming down that's going to impact communities, and it's also going to affect the housing prices and also the employment numbers, because these jobs in some locations, like a researcher who works out of like Birmingham or Mobile, Alabama, they're gonna be making a lot more money than if they just got like a job at like the local lumber store or like working for like Lowe's as being a mid-level manager. So these are trying times we're looking at right now. I just wanted to share you that, because that's huge.
That is huge. That is huge. Wow. So do we have any other questions? I mean, Paul covered a lot.
I have a couple comments, and that was indeed a lot. And I was trying to type in the chat the comments as well. Recently, you talked about 2 years in the house and no rent. I spoke to a homeowner this past week, and he was telling me he had a tenant 5 years and no rent.
That's
So
insane.
he's looking to sell all his properties in New York and get out of that. So it is, people are really feeling it. And even with, like you mentioned, Paul, with the cutting off programs, I've been telling people, like, you got to pay attention to what's going on. I know it's overwhelming and a lot happens every day, but you definitely try to tap in at least once a week to get some kind of a summary of what's going on, because you're going to be left behind if you're not planning for these things. But one thing I want to share with the group, additionally, is I think it was yesterday, I came across a report where someone used AI and tried to sell someone else's property from under them. So they listed the property like it was theirs. They got an offer. Contract was made up. They went to the title. First of all, the contract was made up. The buyer checked that the owner was actually the owner. So they went to county records and checked everything, checked driver's license, matching with the picture they got out of that. Right? They were crossing their T's, dotting their I's. Lo and behold, it went on the way to tell Glenn the title company doing their due diligence. They get on Zoom to do the closing. And the picture of the parts of the owner that they have from the driver's license looks similar to the person who's on the Zoom. And the title lady is saying, something's up, it looks weird. So they asked the supposedly owner to raise their right hand. Owner don't raise their right hand. They realized they used an AI image of the owner,
wow.
and they had it on Zoom. And had the lady not been keen on it, had the title company not been keen on it, they would have closed, and the woman would have lost their property, and the money would have gone to some scrupulous person. So I'm just saying, guys, be very aware of all these things that are happening. Like we said, there are tools and things that are supposed to help us in the business, but there are people who are using it to do other things.
Correct.
Similarly, we hear reports about, even in the taxi space, there are people here who are taking on people's properties from under them. And now we're hearing it with AI.
Wow.
So let's be
That's
mindful.
crazy. That AI can show up at court as a person. You got all these AI generating avatars coming into job interviews and all kinds of stuff. So yes, it is a scary world out here in these streets. It really is. Yes, Bailey, definitely Terminator, for real. Really, let me see how to say this. Get affected very easily when people are not getting revenue. Let's just say earning revenue. That when they're not earning revenue in their businesses, and I know that they've started a while ago, but for whatever reason, things are paused. And it really does affect me. And I don't know if you guys realize this about me. Like, I really need, that's something that feeds me. Like, it feeds me energy when I know that people are really living their business purpose, like they're walking in their purpose, right? And so one of the things that I did, because I know that price points and things of that sort can get a little bit overwhelming for a lot of people. And a lot of people wanted to work with me and on my team. And so what we did was I put together a 12-week program, right, with my international coaches, right? So it's all of our clients, and they're going to be on the line, and it's going to be perfect group coaching, because most business owners from startup to seven figures don't know or properly implement the basic strategies, right? Of finding your market dominating position, understanding how to really do lead generation without spending a whole lot of money to do it. Don't know how to price what it is that you do, right? Properly with that, right? And many in real estate end up moving on to other industries, right? Because they don't know how to build a revenue model around real estate and or their other businesses that touch real estate, right? So having this info in the group coaching for 12 weeks, right? It's really valuable. And plus, all will learn the skills and assets that they'll have access to, all the back end stuff and setting it up. Because honestly, we talk about this in marketing and tech, and we've been talking about it a lot, but no one has really taken it by storm and really did it, right? So this one program for 12 weeks, and then after you get on the group coaching call every single week, I'm gonna have a return and report call, right? So then I'm gonna get on the call, and then we're going to implement, right? All the things that you learned on that coaching session, you're going to now be able to implement during that. And honestly, if you can't set your foundation up in these 12 weeks, then, you know, and forgive me for saying this, I really do think you should just shut down and either get another job or stay at your job or do something, because entrepreneurship may not be in your cards. I just think that's the only thing that I can do. Now, these sessions make sense to come to with the partnerships and learning how to do the real estate stuff, but we can't even get a business foundation set up. Then what are we really feeding into? So answer all your questions at that time. Have a good one, Shark, and good night.
This has been Fiscally Fabulous with Dr. Teresa R. Martin, Esquire. If you would like to learn more on how you can build generational wealth and leave a lasting legacy, go to www.enjoyyourlegacy.com and be sure to subscribe. Thank you for listening. Until next time.